Good morning. I'm Daryl Cady, Chief Executive Officer of Hospice of Southern Maine. I want to extend a sincere welcome and thank everyone for joining us today. Trail of Memories is a beautiful annual celebration to honor the memories of our loved ones. When we began planning this year's celebration, we had hoped that we'd be able to gather everyone in person here at the Gosnell Memorial Hospice House. However, out of an abundance of caution and concern for the safety of everyone involved, it seemed the best decision was to host this year's Trail of Memories event virtually. All of us have continued to be impacted by COVID-19. Throughout this experience, we have proven that we are truly all in this together, and that by helping one another, we will get through this and past this pandemic. Yet it continues to be especially important for us to set aside this time to love and remember those we have lost. Providing compassion, care, and comfort through end of life is the mission that embodies Hospice of Southern Maine. We believe that hospice care is about taking charge, not giving up, and living life to its fullest before saying goodbye. It is an honor and a privilege for us to have been able to provide hospice care for someone you loved. Every day we receive words of thanks. Thanks to our physicians, nurses, social workers, chaplains, hospice aides, grief counselors, and volunteers, all of whom know so gently and competently how to provide care at the end of an individual's journey. Today, I want to thank you for allowing us to share such a special time with you. It may have been weeks, months, or years since your loved one has died. You know in your heart that you're a different person because of your loss. And in your heart, you also know that the love you felt and the memories you've shared together will last forever. It can be difficult to convey the mix of emotions that arise with the loss of a loved one. We look for words to capture what we feel, and we turn to family and friends for comfort. Thank you for being here with us to remember, honor, and celebrate those we have lost and those who have made a difference in our lives. And now I'd like to invite Hospice of Southern Maine's chaplain, Lindsay Roan, to officiate the remainder of our program. Thank you.
This is my 4th year speaking at the Trail of Memories as the Gosnell chaplain. As I spoke last year, I remember thinking that that would be the year we were remote, as if it would be some kind of one-time occurrence outside of the norm. I remember before the pandemic, we would be sitting unmasked under a big tent outside on the patio. I would look into the sea of faces, and I would remember the times we sat together, the stories we told, the tears that were cried, and all of the laughter. I remember looking at the pictures in the rooms, and there was a grief last year for me. A grief that there would not be a sea of people, that there would not be this flood of memories, that I wouldn't see each of you and hear how you'd been. Except that what I learned was I still heard the stories when we shared. I still got calls later with more stories. And I also got to hear people who said to me they were so thankful that we were virtual because they were able to attend from places far away that they wouldn't have otherwise been able to. And that they were able to share this moment and this time with people in their family who had mobility issues and might not otherwise have been able to come easily to a gathering outside. It was a good reminder for me that even in the heaviness of loss, there is also a lightness, that there is a little bit of sunshine. Now, looking back, I realized it wasn't a particularly realistic view that that would be the one and only virtual event. But perhaps it was a little hope against all odds for my grieving heart. Because we've been experiencing a lot of grief in this pandemic. There are losses of time with people, of gatherings, losses of hugs, losses of visits and holiday plans and traditions, and losses of rituals like memorial services and funerals. This is no longer a short event, but instead a long haul marathon. And this, of course, is only amplified for each of you as you are grieving the loss of a loved one in the midst of your pandemic grief as well. Anticipatory grief is defined as that grief that occurs before the person dies. And of course, many of you are familiar with this as well. It's that grief from the moment you first heard a diagnosis, or the moment that your first time that your heart actually allowed it to sink in that you were going to be losing someone. It's that shift from everything is okay and this person is living to I'm afraid and this person is dying. See, we don't start grieving when a person leaves this world. We start grieving when we realize that a person is going to be leaving this world. Now, in the same way that so many people have felt steeped in the grief of the pandemic loss, you have been steeped for many months and maybe years, depending on when your anticipatory grief started. It can be heavy to grieve. And for a lot of you, this has been a long journey where you have been carrying this weight. You are probably exhausted at times and feeling depleted at times. A woman once came to Gosnell, and she was here with her 99-year-old mother. She told me that people would ask her how she was doing, and she would say, "Oh, I'm fine. She lived a long life. This is just her time." And so she sat with her mother, and then she decided it was time to go home, to get a few things, and she'd come right back. When she came back, she had swollen eyes. And she said to me, "I thought I was fine. And then I went to leave a note, and my pen was out of ink. And suddenly the floodgates opened." That was her anticipatory grief. And she was allowing herself to really feel it in that moment. She was sitting in that empty house, and that is when the heaviness really hit her. So I imagine that over this past year, you have had moments where you too have felt that heaviness sink in. And maybe that weight has acted like a flood and overwhelmed you. For some of you, these ceremonies where we remember your time at Gosnell, or remember your time taking care of your loved one with Hospice at Maine services. For some of you, that remembrance, that sitting with that grief, that's when it starts to overwhelm you. I just want you to know that whatever you're feeling now, if you're feeling that heaviness, if the tears are coming, that is absolutely okay. And at the same time, if your focus today is about gratitude, about the ways in which the suffering has ended for someone you love, if you feel lightness in this moment, that's also absolutely okay. No matter what your relationship was or how complicated it could have been, all of those feelings are based in compassion and love, and they are exactly as they should be. There is no need to change them. it isn't about how we respond to these memories that come up today. It's about being aware that there are memories, that there are ways in which this person's life has impacted you, and the ways in which their death has also changed you. It's about being present for those feelings and not about pushing them aside for the tasks that overwhelm us sometimes from day-to-day life. Now, in much more ancient times, there was a tradition in which people would take stones and they would stack them up and create a memorial. These memorials were not for people, as we often have today, but instead, they were built to remember events or things that had been won, or instances in which we felt like something greater than ourselves had intervened. It was a way to have a marker so that every day when people walked by, they would remember the power of that moment, of that time, and they would never forget. These were called Ebenezers. We have a similar thing that we do nowadays. If you've ever been hiking, perhaps you've noticed the cairns in which the stones are stacked upon each other. These are to point out when perhaps the trail is not as clear, or to help you understand that that way may be dangerous or not a way to go. Or come over here and look. There is a beautiful view. Whatever it is marking, the intention is to make you stop, to not think about all of the things you're doing in your own head, to not think about the grocery list or the ache in your body from the hike or the heat, but to just be exactly where you are and to breathe. These memorial reminders, these are exactly what I think of when I think of the Trail of Memories bricks. As I wander around outside and I see the names, I am reminded to take a deep breath, to reflect on the stories, the smiles, the tears, and all that has been shared. I am reminded of what we as hospice workers know, that special and powerful and sacred moments happen at end of life for our patients, for our families, and for us as people who work here. These Ebenezers ensure that we will never forget that this work is important and that you all are important and have had sacred and beautiful moments here. So there is a tradition that we have started doing at Gosnell. We take stones, which we have invited you to participate in this ceremony virtually today. So if you have a stone and a marker handy, you may grab that. And if not, I invite you to take a piece of paper. At Gosnell, these stones are held. We take our memories, our thoughts, our tears, and all that comes up for us. We reflect on them, and then we place them around the perimeter of the building so that Gosnell House is held up and surrounded by memories of sacred moments and sacred times. Today, I want you to take your stone, to hold it, to not think about all the things that life is calling you to do beyond here, to think only of your loved one, to allow whatever comes up to come up for you with no judgment, to let it flow through you and reflect on it. And as you sit in that space, we will share all of the stones, all of our Ebenezers that we are placing in the patio. So please, reflect and be present as we share the names of those we have loved and lost through end-of-life care here at Hospice of Southern Maine this year.
Nikki Acito, Mary Janet Aliapoulios, Catherine Amabile, Robert Barter, Rita Bollier, Brian Becker, Bruce Bornstein, Joe Bornstein, Stanley Bork, Andrew Cadotte, Mimi Karen, Thomas Carper, Carol Dame, Charles Damone, Donna DeBlois, Roxanne Delaney, Joyce Dembicki, Audrey Didrikson, Kimberly Dion, Ronald and Patricia Dubé, Oscar and Helen Dussault, Leah, Donald, and Alan Fisher, Walker Flint, Merrill Fogg Jr., Barbara Foley, Catherine Frost, Ginger Furlot, Chuck Gajewski, John Golding, Catherine Goodwin, Richard Grace, Gardner Graffam Jr., Karen Gran, Betty Guybord, Ward Hand, Anne and Dick Jackson, Mark Johnson, Mark Killinger, Donna Kinney, Clarence Jim Langley, Margaret Linnell, Janice LaPierre, Frank and Mark Levitt, Betsy Lowry, Catherine Mason, Ellen Main, Doris McAfee, Ed McGeechee, Herbert Meyer, Lorelei Mishu, Gail Moore, Michael Munt, James and Mary Murphy, Barbara Myers, Arthur Nawrocki, Henry Nielsen, Betty Nix, Arthur Buck and Marie Paré, Theana Pateropoulos and Genevieve Poulos, Elaine Pellerin, Wilfred Perrault, Robert Plaisted, Sonia and Glenn Plass, Arthur Perkis, Megan Rand, Joan Rochette, Ralph Rogers, Marie Roy, Lori Chopin, Guy Simpkins, Wanda Small, Paul Smith Sr., Pat Seschel, Barbara Thompson, John Tuttle, John Veltri,
So, how did it feel? How did it feel to be present, to be holding yourself in that space, to remember? Did you feel heaviness, perhaps tears? Were there smiles and laughter? Did you remember the phrases that they always said that drove you crazy or that you find yourself repeating even now? Did you think of their quirks, the things you love, the things you miss? Did you remember sitting with them? Did you shed tears because of the time that you lost because you couldn't sit with them? All of that come flooding back. In the midst of everything you remember and all the space that you have allowed for it, did you really allow yourself to sit with it? I invite you to take your stone now, and on it, to write your loved one's name or a word that comes up for you when you think of them. And then, what I want you to do tonight, take this stone, place it somewhere in your house. This can be in a place where you will see it frequently, perhaps next to your toothbrush. Or you can put it somewhere where you maybe will have to move something in order to see it. Someplace you won't see it very often. Either way, when you see your own personal Ebenezer, I invite you to hold it in your hand, to allow space to just think of this person, to sit with those memories, to not judge them, to let whatever feelings come, and to just be present. Now, I'm not under some misguided notion that you aren't already thinking of your loved one, that these memories aren't already coming up for you. But what I do know from speaking with people is that there is a part of grieving in which life is still going on all around us. And so when all of that wells up inside us, we push it aside so that we can make it through the day, so that we can go to the next task and do the next thing. So what I'm inviting you to do is to, when you see your stone, to not push it aside, to just take a few minutes to let yourself feel it, to give yourself the gift of presence and create a small sacred space for remembering. I, at Gosnell, along with my coworkers, will also spend time walking around the patio. We will see the stones. We will read the names. We will remember all of the pieces that you shared with us and our own experiences with your loved one. We are so thankful at Hospice of Southern Maine that we are allowed to be part of this end-of-life journey, that we are given the gift of trust to make the end of someone's life all that much more peaceful, and that we're able to be with you and support you as well. So thank you. Thank you for the Ebenezers that you give us that remind us of your sacred moments. And thank you for creating space in your life for those sacred moments to continue for you. May your Ebenezers always show you that there are sacred moments, even in deep grief. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maria McCann, and I'm one of the bereavement counselors here at Hospice of Southern Maine. First, I'd like to share a poem by Morgan Harper Nichols titled, Let Today Be. For whatever today means for you, I hope you give yourself permission to breathe. I hope you remember that in their own small way, every inhale is an act of taking it all in. Every exhale is an act of surrender. I hope you find room to just be. Whether today is a day of looking back, looking forward, or simply being present to the moment, in the best way you know how, there is room for you on this very day to be where you need to be. If there is grief, let there be grief. If there is joy, let there be joy. If there is a mixture of feelings that have no name, there is no pressure to name them today. Whether today is a day of remembering, honoring, celebrating, creating, or waiting. Nurturing, unearthing, practicing gratitude, or just making it through. There is room right here for you to let today be what it needs to be. Welcoming the grace that gives you room to breathe. I wanted to take a moment to talk about our bereavement services at Hospice of Southern Maine. If your loved one was taken care of by our team at Hospice of Southern Maine, either at home or at the Gosnell House, you are entitled to 13 months of bereavement services, which include individual grief counseling and support groups. If your loved one was not a patient of ours, but you're looking for bereavement support, we can offer a limited number of individual grief counseling sessions or have you join one of our groups. For more information on upcoming support groups, please visit our website. If you'd like to set up grief counseling, please do not hesitate to contact us. So before we close today, I'd like to leave you with another poem by Sylvan Kamens and Rabbi Jack Reamer. At the rising of the sun and its going down, we remember them. At the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. At the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. At the shining of the sun and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. At the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. At the beginning of the year and at its end, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joy and crave to share, we remember them. As long as we live, they too will live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. Thank you all for coming to this year's Trail of Memories event. Take care, everyone.